Hello, everyone. My name is Yomi Adeyemo. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Juno Construction, and I have the pleasure of having a podcast today to talk about, something that's dear to my heart, supplier diversity. And it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And it just so happened that, Juno decided to create a podcast room about 3 months ago. And also we have Construction Inclusion Week coming up, in a couple of weeks. So everything aligned to give me the opportunity to do this podcast and to talk to two individuals in construction and have a good discussion about supplier diversity. Some people may be aware of what supplier diversity is. Some people may not be aware, and some people may not know how to increase efforts in supplier diversity. Right. So we want to talk today about supplier diversity, what that means, what are the challenges that minority and diverse businesses are having, and what we as an industry, what we as a company could do to help engage more minority and diverse suppliers. So today I have Mahsa Poorak. Hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You did great.
Awesome, thank you. She's the CEO of Southern Electric. And then I have Bryan Cordova. All right. He is the owner of Maraya Dreams Construction. And so they're going to be talking today about, a little bit about their background, how they got into the industry and some of the challenges. But for right now, I want, starting with you, to go ahead and introduce yourself and your company and give us a little bit of background about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Mahsa Poorak. I'm Chief Operating Officer and General Counsel for Southern Electric Company. Our company was started in 1997 by my dad. He ran it independently until he passed away in an accident in 2018. At that time, I was a public defender in California, and I had no plans of working in construction or moving back to Georgia, but there's that saying that, like, God laughs at your plans, and he was laughing.
That's right.
So after about a year, I made the decision to move back home, and I took the Georgia bar exam, and we'd had an interim president for a couple years, but I let him go in April of 2021, and I've been in the lead seat since then. And yeah, that's, I think that my experience outside of the construction industry, being a public defender, has really helped me in the position that I have now, and I think that it just makes my company and my employees better.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Again, we all come from different backgrounds, right? So you didn't have no interest, any interest in construction, and here you are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew my dad did lights before he passed away. That was it. So, and now I know more now. But
good.
yeah, that was the extent of my knowledge about his company. So yeah, I've been, picking it up as I go. I've learned a lot, but yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we definitely are excited to hear more about that journey, right? How about you, Bryan?
Yeah, so my name is Bryan Cordova, and I am actually co-owner with my mom at Maraya Dreams Construction. She started the business back in late 2020 with her husband, who is the master carpenter. And then I joined up in mid-2021, leaving my corporate job as a project engineer for UPS to come help her kind of establish the business and organize everything with my project management skills, my engineering skills to help grow the business. And luckily after I came in and went through learning pretty much everything that I did do myself, putting everything from using the miter saw to installing trim, baseboard, crown, everything. Back in about 2022, we got a contract with a big developer here in Georgia who is called Stanley Martin. So that's kind of where we're at now, and continue to grow and working with Juno here now.
That's awesome. So unlike you all, I didn't really grow up in construction. Raised in a Nigerian home, and I think that the two choices that they usually give, the kids is like being a doctor and an engineer. So so I knew I wanted to be an engineer, just didn't think anything about construction, right? All I saw was like, people actually using hammers, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to work that hard. So I want to tell people what to do. So maybe an architect, engineer. But later on, obviously in life, I ended up being in construction, which probably one of the greatest decisions I've made. So I'm glad that you all, chose, or maybe didn't choose, but now are in construction, right? Because it's such a great industry. So just like you said, both of your companies are currently doing work with Juno Construction. But I want to talk about the challenges that you all have faced, right? Being a minority or disadvantaged business, because opportunities are very rare, and are hard to come by when you're a minority or disadvantaged business, right? And even a small business as well, too. Like starting up your business, you have to try to make those relationships and pretty much pray for people to give you a chance, right? Because you know that once you have that opportunity, you can prove yourself, right? So I want to talk more about the challenges that you have faced so far in being in the industry, as for you as being a woman-owned company now, right? So what challenges have you faced?
Well, I think coming in, because I didn't come up in the community here, and I'd been in California for 6 years before I moved back, I didn't have any kind of community in the construction industry. I had no contacts. Like, I had a small handful of people that had worked with my dad for many years at the time, like our insurance bonds agent and our accountant, but I really didn't know anybody beyond that. So when I was trying to build our groundwork, which really the interim president that I had left me with no customers and no backlog, one of the biggest challenges at the time was, where do you go from here, right? Like, I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends. You send, cold call emails to general contractors, and, you don't get any response. And that's really challenging, right? And I think that that's one thing that in the construction industry, at least in Georgia, I can't speak for anywhere else, there's a lot of family-owned businesses, generational businesses, people that have come up within these communities, so they know who to call. They know where to go, right? And I didn't have any of that. The way personally I overcame that was very different than for my dad. I think my dad was just like, well, I'm going to push through. I'll find a couple people to work with. We'll develop that and we'll go from there. And for me, I really wanted to expand and have every opportunity available to us as I was rebuilding the company. And so one of the first things I did was I joined the Associated General Contractors. And very quickly after that, I was in the Young Leadership Council. And that singularly, I think, was the biggest tool and resource that I had that helped me bridge that gap, because it was really scary coming in and looking at like the small backlog we have dwindling every month and not having anybody to call, and like you said, Yami, like, I mean, nobody really has a reason to give you a chance, especially like, I mean, I'm a former public defender from California. What do I know? Right. Like, they're like, you don't know anything about construction. And I'm like, that's totally fair. Right. But I have been able to figure out how to run a business, and I've hired a lot of people that do know, how to do the electrical part of the construction process. And so, but when you don't have those resources, that community that's going to go out there for you and like call that person and say, hey, look, I know that there may be some questions that you have, but they can do it. She can do it. Like, give them the chance. Not having that sense of community, I think, is one of the biggest things that makes it harder for women or people of color in the industry to make inroads and be successful. And there are ways, like I said, the way that I found to combat it, but that also costs money too. So not everybody maybe in the beginning is set up to be able to do that. So I think that it's definitely tough not having that kind of extended community, which I'm very proud and very grateful that I feel like I've developed over the past couple years. But if you had talked to me in April of 2021 when I was letting the president go, I was very afraid. I had no idea. Like, quite frankly, every day that summer, I woke up feeling like that we could close. This could be the end of it. For sure. So I'm very glad I wake up with other problems now, not those problems. Right. But yeah, it's the community. It's so important. And I mean, this industry is about relationships. Even once you make that community, right? Like, and it's not just even the work you do. It's like how you treat your employees, how you treat other people. Those things, they matter greatly, and they help you build that foundation. But you've got to get that opportunity to like get the chance in the first place. Right. And that's hard.
Right. And so you talk a lot about people helping you, right? The community. So like advocators, right? 'Cause,
yes.
One thing that my parents preached to me was, destiny helpers, right? Because we all have purposes, but we need people to open those doors, help us connect. Because you don't know what you don't know, and you know what you know, right? So sometimes you just don't know information that will help you, right? But there's people that are put in your lives that you connect with that, like, okay, hey, you need to do this in order to be successful. You need to do A, B, C, D, right? So those are definitely important, to build upon what you have or what you're trying to do to be successful, to create those opportunities and to be successful when you get those opportunities.
Of course.
How about you, Bryan? Any challenges that have come your way since, joining with your mom as a co-owner of your company?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of challenges, especially starting out, as a small business and a small, diverse business. First off, there was a huge challenge just for my mom being a woman in construction and being a immigrant woman in construction. So she had a lot of struggles. And that's kind of one of the bigger reasons too for me to join, to help her and build the business. So she had trouble getting work. She was luckily the way she found her first kind of contract or work for a subcontractor was she knew somebody that was already kind of doing similar stuff. And luckily, they gave her the information and she was able to start working with them. But the I don't know how to put it, but the work that they did for the money that they got paid was not worth it at all. Yeah. And that's when I came in and started looking at all the numbers, looking at everything from the back end and seeing what they were doing and what everything was costing, and it was bad. Yeah. So luckily, I was able to jump in, about a year later from when she started the business and actually see what they were doing, using all my engineering background to look at how long they were taking to do things and how much they're getting paid for that and what they were actually making per hour, and it was really bad. Wow. So that was one of her biggest challenges, and luckily I was able to come in and kind of look at that really deeply and starting to figure out what else we need to do to, get better money, more money. So then that's kind of when I came in, and I think my struggles when I started was trying to network, because for me, I went to college, did engineering, got out, started working the corporate stuff, and I don't really have the relationships in construction like that, and that's when I think the struggle was the networking, but luckily when I was at UPS, I was part of a internal organization that they help kind of mentor you. Okay. So luckily I was able to use that and network from there outside of that as well, outside of UPS, and meet different people and learn that there's a bunch of organizations here in Georgia alone, that help with all types of things from young entrepreneurs to construction businesses and, or immigrants as well. So, so I knew that. Then what I did was just network. And I learned about the GHCC, who is Georgia Hispanic Construction Association, or GCA. And, I joined them, started networking, going to all their events, meeting people. That's actually where I met Yomi, too. Sure. So that's right. Networking is huge, right. I can tell you. And I continue to do that and, continue to try to build relationships with multiple people. And I'm not comfortable. I consider myself an introvert. Yeah. So it's a struggle for me, but I have to do it. Yep. There was no choice. But I think that's probably the biggest struggle, is just trying to network, meet different people in the industry. And then now I think my biggest struggle is I'm kind of getting more offers than I can handle right now, and I'm starting to realize that, and I'm kind of going through that growing pain and trying to figure out getting more work or getting more help, getting more quality help.
Yeah.
Which of course across the U.S.
It's
there's
tough.
a shortage of workers, so we struggle with that it's even harder for us. So
For sure. Yeah, so you mentioned organizations, right? You mentioned you were part of AGC, and then Georgia Hispanic Contractor Association, and there's so many other organizations out there that are beneficial for diverse suppliers, small businesses, to help them facilitate those relationships. Because both of you all mentioned how important it is to have a community, network, because this industry is really about relationships, right? It's not always about the lowest number. No, it's about building that relationship and having people give you a chance. So I'm glad that you all have utilized those organizations, and you're currently utilizing those organizations to facilitate those relationships. So let me ask you this: why is supplier diversity important to you?
Well, I think in any setting, any context, having a variety of opinions and thoughts brings great value. When you come from different backgrounds, you have different experiences, the way that you may approach problem solving is different. And when we're dealing with a construction site where you've got hundreds of different kinds of people out there every day, it helps to not have just one singular viewpoint and one management style, and I think that it's going to continue to become important, as I think that probably the past like 50 years, or maybe honestly forever, of the construction industry, at least in Georgia, has been fairly homogeneous, right? Like it's been, I think, a lot of the stereotypical idea of like the people that you see running these construction companies a lot of the times are older white men. And it's not to say that there's anything inherently wrong with that, but when you're dealing with that group of people, they have a approach, or they've developed over years an approach of how they're dealing with field staff and personnel, and we're coming upon a new generation that is vastly different, that
Yeah.
is by far one of the most diverse generations that we have in this country, and that trend is only going to continue. And if you can't apply the old standards of management, of employee treatment to the new generation, we will lose them, right? And particularly in construction, when we're talking about, I mean, it is impossible to find people. It is greatly one of our biggest challenges. And part of the challenge is not even like, oh, let me find somebody who's an electrician. It's let me find people who are willing to start in the trade in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Those people are not going to be willing to come if we continue to be the stereotype of like the aggressive backbreaking work, the like demeaning attitudes and behavior towards staff at any level, right? But I think we've all seen that to certain different extents, that like you're on a job site and something's not going right, and the lead guy is calling everybody a moron and screaming and doing this stuff. And first of all, none of us work better that way, right? I have yet to see anybody get yelled at and then perform amazing, right? That's not what happens, right? But again, I feel like when you have a group of leaders that are of one experience, of one mindset, of one generation, you're not going to be able to then speak to the next generation that we need. We have to be able to reach these people and reach them in a way that they're like, you know what, I want to be here.
Yeah.
Like, and I have a place here. I can see myself there. So yeah, I think having that kind of diversity, having women, having people of color, it helps expand the thoughts and the conversations that are happening in the job site, in the office, wherever it might be. And that's only going to benefit all of us because we all have so many different kinds of people that are working for us.
That's right. And like you said, and workforce development is a whole another topic. And it is related, right? Because if we're talking about diversity, obviously construction industry has been, a white man's industry for a long time, right? And to your point, yeah, I mean, this country, this world is getting more diverse, right? And you talked about the labor shortage, right? How, we're looking for labor. So if all the children, the kids see, are white men, then, there's just going to continue to be a labor shortage, right? So we got to diversify. We got to have them see, different backgrounds, right? Diverse individuals, being leaders in the construction industry as well too. So that will help our workforce issue, right? And that will help, just construction in general. Because again, when you have a more diverse business, at least the studies that I've seen, it's more, there's more innovation, right? There's more
course.
creativity because you have so many different perspectives looking at something. And, you know, there's never, like, no one has all the answers, right? So when you have a more diverse team, you know, you allow for more creativity. So, but how about you, Bryan? What is supplier diversity and what does that mean to you?
Well, for me, supplier diversity is, you know, just hitting back at, you know, changing what the current, what the current construction, what it looks like to everybody from the outside, right? Change the stereotype, because, like you were just saying, you know, it's hard to, you know, find work. So how do we find, you know, talent that's going to want to come work in the construction industry? Is putting people in place that, you know, that people that can see themselves, you know, in that position, right?
Yeah.
And that is diversity, because the construction industry is not going to be just strictly white men,
Yeah.
right? Especially, I think, in this country that is a melting pot of all types of backgrounds. And I think that, yeah, it's for me, I think on a personal level, diversity is to be able to help, you know, my friends and family, my community, to help them, because, you know, coming from an immigrant background, it is a struggle from day one, from when you get here. And, you know, I went through the struggles as an immigrant and all that, and my parents, I saw my, you know, parents, as I was growing up, going through the struggle. So for me, I think the biggest thing is having mentors. I think mentors is going to be a big thing, to be able to bring diversity to multiple industries, not even just construction. Because
Sure.
I went through, I think I went through a big portion of my life without having a mentor per se, and then getting into college and then the corporate world, I was able to find mentors to help me, assist me, guide me, answer questions about a lot of stuff. And I think I give them a lot of praise for what they did to put me in a mindset, basically, to do what I do now, and, you know, running this business with a mom and continue to try to grow and help the community.
Sure. So I think, is it fair to say that we're all immigrants?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I was born in Finland, so yes.
Okay, awesome. I was born in Nigeria. So
Yeah, I was born in Peru.
awesome. Look at that. Look at that. I like the diversity.
None of us could be president.
That's right. And I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Only
Perfectly fine.
my business.
Too much
Yeah,
stressful.
that's true.
right.
That's true.
So one thing that my dad always told me growing up is you have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, do you all feel, you know, that your company has to work twice as hard as non-minority businesses, right? Non-diverse businesses. Is that a true statement?
So one thing I will say that was very surprising to me coming back to the construction industry in Georgia, having lived, I mean, I went to law school in San Francisco, so I was living in one of the most progressive areas in the country, right? And I was very apprehensive coming here about whether I would be accepted as, you know, a woman of color, attorney, you know, not from our community. And I was really surprised at how welcomed I was. Like, honestly, I was not expecting it at all. And so I think that, especially amongst, like, the young people in this generation in the construction industry, like, I don't feel like there's as much of the barriers. They're there, right? But, like, amongst the new people coming in, there's we all grew up in a different mindset, right? So I think that is going to continue to improve, not to say that there aren't challenges still for minorities and women-owned businesses. But I will say, I think that I don't think it's an issue of having to necessarily prove myself twice as hard, but it is harder to get into the room at times, which was, you know, kind of something where we started, is that because I don't have that community, you know, it's hard to get the meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's necessarily just because like I'm a woman of color. I think that it's when you are in a relationships based industry, people go with what they know versus what they don't know, right? And that makes it hard, you know? So I don't know that the expectations feel higher on me, but I feel like it was a challenge to get myself where I was. But I think that's, again, to the credit of where we are in the industry right now, is that I never felt like who I was, or after I got here. I was worried about it before I came, but once I got here, I wasn't worried that who I was going to limit my company, right? And I feel like I've actually found that the opposite is true, and that I've been able to do a lot more than I ever thought I could. And I think a lot of it is because I have a different perspective and attitude about what we're doing.
Sure. And so you talk about it's hard getting into the room, right?
Yeah.
So once you get in the room, like Bryan, how important is it to be, like, to not let go of the opportunity, like to make sure that, you know, like you really do a great job? Because again, you know, opportunities come and go, and you know, you really got to take advantage of the opportunities, right? I think there was a connotation, you know, just being, you know, part of this space of supplier diversity, that on certain projects where there is a requirement for, you know, diverse participation, there are sometimes diverse businesses that take advantage of it, right? You know, like they know that there's a 15%, you know, goal that's needed, and they're just going to be a part of it, you know, and not actually, you know, really do the work. So how important is it for you, Bryan, to, once you get those opportunities, to really be, you know, successful at it?
You know, for me, I think it's on a personal level, I feel like it's a lot more pressure for me. And maybe it's because you know, it's my mom that's a co-owner with me too, and she's getting older, and you know, the idea is to eventually retire her. So I feel pressure from, I guess, multiple levels, you know, personal level, family level, and then on the business side with, you know, developers and contractors. And I guess it's part of maybe my personality too, is I like to do things once and do things the right way the first time and get it done. So there's no questions about it, and you know, we move on to the next thing. That's probably one of the biggest growing pains right now, is that, you know, everything's not always done perfectly the first time, because I don't have control of everybody. I only have control of myself, and it's something that I'm, you know, working through. And it goes back to, you know, trying to make sure that, you know, you do things right with you know, the opportunities that you get. We've been growing, I've been getting opportunities recently, and things are kind of coming to a realization for me that, you know, I need to maybe slow down or focus on a couple things, so things don't get out of hand, basically, and try to make things right for the couple opportunities that I do have right now, and then, you know, maybe worry about growing more later on while I kind of, you know, in a sense, perfect these couple opportunities that I have now.
For sure. So going back to get into the room, right? So both companies have certifications as, believe.
Women owned. We're
Women
not a
owned.
minority owned,
Okay.
because the city of Atlanta told me I'm white.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really great joke to tell, because everybody laughs, but it is true. But we are a woman-owned business.
Women owned. Okay.
Yeah.
And
We're a diversity-owned business.
okay. So
And minority.
minority. All right. So how important was it for you all to get certified, and have you all seen a benefit in getting certified? Because there's a lot of you know, diverse suppliers that I meet, you know, through networking events, maybe just started a business or been in business, and they haven't gotten their certification. So I want to speak to those individuals on whether or not, you know, it's important to get a certification, and if it's, you know, beneficial.
I mean, I think I have not won a job because of a certification, right? I don't think it's a make or break. I do think it's nice to be able to tell people that we're a woman-owned business. And it's also frustrating for me that I can't tell people that I'm a minority-owned business because I am, but technically on paper I'm not. And I am a lawyer, so I understand that like I'm not going to go out and tell people I'm a minority-owned business when there is this technicality about it or whatever, you know. But I think people have a perception about, you know, like wanting, again, like I think the desire to have diversity has grown, and so people want to see, you know, a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business on their projects, but I haven't found it to be make or break, right? And you know, that's something that I think maybe should be explored in a different venue at a time, because what's the whole purpose of all of it if like it's not a benefit in a way too?
Sure.
And like you said, I mean, I've heard stories about a lot of people who've got the designation and will joint venture with somebody and their name is on it, but not one soul from their company is on the job site, right? And you know, that's not right either.
Right.
You know, like the designations should truly be for the companies that are the minority owned, the women owned, and practice that and live that, you know, because like one of the impacts, whether you get business or not, but one of the impacts fundamentally is like I have females who work for me that could see themselves being in my chair, right? Because and that's because I'm present, and that matters. That, you know, I think that has an impact on the people coming up. And so similarly, I think with you, you know, like being a minority owned business, like it shows all the people that are working with you what the possibilities are. That it matters, you know.
Right. How about you?
So for us, I think it's, you know, it's it's fairly new as far as being certified.
You just got yours.
June, I think
June?
it was.
Okay.
So it's fairly new, but and so I mean, all the opportunities that I've gotten is pretty much prior certification. But since getting the certification, I've seen like a lot of emails about, you know, how they help. They do webinars, you know, throughout the month on certain days. So I feel like, you know, they're trying to help, you know, once you're certified, and they have you, I guess, on their email list. Or, you know,
What organization did you go through, by the way, to get certified?
Georgia DOT.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And the process itself is difficult, just because you have to gather all these paperwork and have everything organized. And being a small business that's starting up, it's, you know, hard to have everything in place that they really want to see, all the details, because you're, you know, a small business, you're not necessarily worried about, you know, the format of how the organization is set. It's really just, you know, me and my mom and then a couple workers, and that's it. You're not really worried about a chain of, you know, who's the boss and who's underneath and all that.
So there is a good perspective that certification is good, because like there's a lot of paperwork involved, right? So you have to meet those requirements, and if you're certified, it shows us that okay, you're legit, you meet those requirements. Versus if you're not certified, well, I mean, you could say that you're a woman owned. Well, maybe you don't own, you know, 51% of the business, right? So how do we know that? But at least in Juno's mind, we believe in just making an impact, right? Whether you're certified or non-certified. Again, I mean, we don't verify, you know, if someone's a woman owned, like if she's a CEO or president, you know, like we like to still have that impact. Like you said, you know, if a minority or a diverse individual is in a high role in the company, they're making an impact, right? Because others are seeing that, oh, well, I mean, I have the potential to be in a position. I have a potential to run my own company. So there's other benefits, you know, outside of just that whole direct, you know, contract award with getting certification. So that's just another perspective of how we look at, you know, certified versus non-certified as well too. And obviously sometimes it does bring you to the tables as well too, because again, if you have goals, well, we want to. A lot of companies want to seek out those diverse trade partners to be a part of the organization, right? And at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter, right? You know, because if you could get the work done, you could get the work done, no matter if you're a woman-owned company, if you're an African-American-owned company. All we seek for is quality, right? but we do come to the realization that a lot of small businesses are minority and diverse, right? And they need those opportunities to scale up. Like it seems like you're having a lot more business, right? So you're trying to scale up, right? And that's the thing, having those resources in place. So I know Southern Electric's been around since 1997, right?
Yep.
And your company, at least you joined with your mom. What year again?
Mid 2021.
Okay. Has it been hard for you? I know like you've worked a lot in residential and you're now migrating to the commercial. Has it been tough migrating to the commercial space? Because a lot of times I meet diverse suppliers, that have worked in residential and they're trying to migrate into the commercial, which is, two different things,
Of
right?
course.
So I kind of want you to speak on, that transition, and explain to us, if there has been any challenges in transition from that residential space to the commercial space.
Yeah. So my challenges, I would say, are that, yeah, I mean, they're completely different kind of requirements for both sides. On the residential side, it's a bit more relaxed. You're not worried about a hard hat necessarily, at least for us,
Yeah.
because we're pretty much going in at the end, just putting up trim. We're not, putting up anything heavy. We're inside a house. On the commercial side, now we're looking at having to get certified, OSHA certified. Everybody has to have a hard hat, a vest, steel toe boots, which luckily I had a little bit of exposure to that, back, after high school, working with my dad. And I think, aside from that, the field stuff also, on the back end stuff is trying to work through all the, I guess change orders, you would call them, with what, the customer wants. We initially started out with a certain specific scope with what they wanted, and I was kind of planning to that. And then, a couple months later, things are changing, and we're going through a couple of different estimates of what they want and figuring out what all the little details about that, having drawings. Being a small business, luckily for me, I have that background in doing drawings and estimates and
Yeah.
and putting all those details together. But now my issue is I don't even have time to do it and sit down and do that.
Right.
So I am, putting that out to somebody else to do it for me and getting them to do it. And that's, pretty much the struggles right now with, transitioning from residential to a commercial company. I think that's pretty, about the majority. Yeah.
Okay. And obviously, like, at least with the job that you're working on with us, I mean, it's pretty much similar, like, to the rooms, so it really depends on the market that you're going to in commercial. Like, it's easier I think, for someone in carpentry to go from residential to commercial in the multifamily arena versus maybe like a mechanical guy from residential going to commercial, right? Because it's a little bit different. Now, multifamily, obviously it's a little more closer than like an office or whatever. So it seems like you have to be really strategic, when you're trying to make that transition from residential to commercial, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think knowing what I know now, I think one of the biggest things is turnkey. Commercial jobs are pretty much just turnkey, and that's not that I wasn't used to that. In residential, I don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah.
I just come in, bring the labor and the work, and we get it done.
Yeah.
I do have to worry about it on the back end where if stuff is missing or we didn't get enough material, I have to come back afterwards, do some punch list items and get that done. But as far as, providing any of the material, haven't, worried about in the residential. Now on the commercial side that you do, which pretty much about doubles and triples what the amount of capital that you need to have those projects.
For
So
sure.
luckily we're doing a small project right now,
Yeah.
which is not a huge deal for us, and we can handle it. And it's going to be a very good experience, I think, for me to really see how that all works out.
For sure. And again, it's not that you can't do the work. It's just it's a different, right?
Yep.
It's a different mindset. There's different things that you got to consider, and it's going to help you scale, to the company that you want to become. So, what would you all like to see companies do to support more minority and diverse trade partners, right? So we talked about organization advocators, right? Georgia Hispanic Contractor Association, AGC, ABC, NAMAC, you name it. There's a lot of organizations, and I'm fortunate enough that Juno is involved in a good bit of these organizations, right, to support the construction industry and specifically minority and diverse suppliers. But what would you all like to see differently or things to be done to help grow the future of diverse and of diverse suppliers?
I think the first is even having the conversation, which
Yeah.
Juno is doing, obviously, which is fantastic, but not every general contractor that we work with is doing that, So I think having an eye to it, paying attention to it, and wanting it to happen and wanting more diversity, it will come if that's what you're seeking, what you're doing, right? But I was thinking about this question, and one job came to mind a couple years ago. I was working on a police station, and the plumber on the project was an African American woman who owned her own company. And she started running into problems because I don't know whether it was the owner or the general contractor, but we weren't getting paid 90, 120 days after we were submitting our billings. And, for me, I'm unreasonably lucky that my dad left us in a financial position where I don't rely on, what we get paid now to pay my bills. I have enough to pay my bills, and that comes in to kind of replenish, our coffers. But she was in a position where she didn't have significant financial reserves. And so she had her people walk off the job because they weren't getting paid. And she should have had the money to pay them. But for the fact that, again, either the GC or the owner, I don't know where exactly the hang up was, 90 to 120 days is very long for a minority contractor that doesn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in their bank account, So I think that that's one of the biggest things is respecting and understanding that, like, especially if you're working for a smaller, newer company, it is so important to help them get that money in their hands. And it doesn't mean that that woman was mismanaging her company. I mean, she was very smart. But I mean, you've got to pay your people, and if they're not getting paid, they're not going to come, right? And so I think that was very challenging for her. So I would kind of keep an eye to that as, like, what terms do you have for people? And then, like, on that same job, I ended up having an issue where, we have lien waivers we have to file before we submit our billing to say that I've paid everybody that I owe money to, right? Well, just like the GCs hold retainage on me, if I have a subcontractor, I may hold retainage on them. And so on that same job, I had a generator subcontractor that I was holding a 10% retainage on. So I wasn't paying them 100% of what they were owed. I was paying them 100% of what they were owed minus retainage, right? Sure. And the general contractor interpreted that to be an invalid lien waiver and wanted to send me a joint check, and they did. And that might be fine if this subcontractor of mine was based here, but they were based in Tennessee. So if I had to deposit that, I would have either had to drive up to Tennessee to have somebody sign it from their company over to me to deposit, or they would have had to come to me. It was this whole thing, right? And fortunately, again, I'm unlike the plumber on that job. I wasn't desperate to get that money to be able to pay people. Right. But for like 3 months, that was a back and forth between the corporate office of the general contractor, me trying to explain, like, it's not that I haven't paid my sub, I'm holding retainage just like you're holding retainage on me. Right. And finally it ended up being that they sent a new check that was not a joint check. But I feel like that lack of consideration, like, and again, if that had happened to that plumber, that could have been even more devastating than it was for her at the time. Sure. right? So keeping that in mind, and again, that it's not an indication that this person is bad with money or failing at their job, especially if you're starting up, there are high costs to what we do. And she could be managing her money as well as she can. But if she's got no income coming in for 3-4 months because her bill is not getting paid, a lot of people are going to be in a tough spot.
Yeah, yeah. And so, from what I'm gathering, is being more intentional in considerations, right?
Yes.
Because if our intention is to have more diverse suppliers, right, we have to understand, where they're coming from, what kind of financial positions they are, so that, because at the end of the day, we want them to be successful, because if they are successful, we are successful, right? And our intentions have to be to support them with resources in order for them to be successful and grow. So I think that's important. I've heard that from different trade partners, that cash flow is important. Obviously, like, there, depend on where you're sitting, you're looking at it, perspective, right? Because again, from a GC to prime subcontractor, and then you keep going down. They all have different perspectives on that. But yes, it is important that we make sure that we have things in place to support smaller businesses or supply or diverse suppliers. How about you, Bryan?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's, two things that I think could help. One was, we kind of just talked about was capital.
Yeah.
Capital is a huge thing, and then the other part is mentorship.
Yeah.
As far as capital, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going through that now, switching from residential going to commercial, and then on top of that, another developer wants to go turnkey too, which is an opportunity, but it's difficult to have that kind of capital, on a month-to-month basis when you're starting out, you're a small business. So one of my examples is that the beginning of our contract with Stanley Martin's, they didn't give us all these neighborhoods at first, right? At first we started from one neighborhood they wanted to see our work, of course, see how we did, how we handled the job, how we handled having multiple houses. So luckily it went well, and then we expanded into 6-7 neighborhoods this year, and they
Nice.
continue to build throughout. Their plan is to continue to grow next year as well. So
Yeah.
having that transition from just having one neighborhood to 7 neighborhoods, it's a struggle, because once that first neighborhood was done, there was really nothing else that we could do. We had to wait until they were building more houses, so we were kind of pretty much dead in the water for about a month and a half. And I was luckily I planned ahead. I was able to save up enough money and kind of got us through those kind of very, very slow month and a half. And now, to this point where there's another opportunity, but they want to have a turnkey project for them, for a different developer. So now I'm, working through that, trying to figure out how do I come up with this kind of capital. And then being a small business, it's hard for, banks or lenders that are going to want to give you that type of loan or the amount of loan that I'm going to need to try to support that kind of project. So we'll see, how that goes with that, trying to have that capital for those types of projects. And then the other part is, I think mentoring, I think would be a huge help for minorities, diverse businesses. I've had a lot of help, once I got into my college years and then into corporate with mentors. I think they really helped kind of shape me and guide me through those times and kind of get me to where I'm at now. I mean, I think from my experience, I think everything that I've gone through kind of helped me to be where I'm at now today. And I think having mentors, being there was a big thing to that. I think maybe, for big companies, something that could help is, just be flexible with some of these owners to answer questions, or even have somebody that they can reach out to on, a multitude of questions. Because being a business owner, I have to wear so many hats every day, and every day is something different.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly, learning different things on a daily basis, trying to put out fires throughout the week and get everything organized. So sometimes having somebody there that's kind of already been through it to ask questions about what you're going through, I think would be a huge, huge help.
That's awesome. So, mentorship, cash flow, resources. Seems like there are all ingredients to help. More minority and diverse suppliers. So, if you have to leave like one advice for, minority, diverse suppliers that are, just getting their foot in the door, just growing their business. Maybe they've been in business for, I don't know, let's say less than 3 years, and they're just trying to start right. What advice would you give them on the beginning of their journey?
Get out there, get yourself out there and be known. I was talking to somebody not that long ago in that position. It's a architecture firm, and they're trying to grow. And what I told this person was, there are hundreds of architecture firms in the metro Atlanta area. Why yours, right? And the why is not always, as a comment you made, Yami, is it's not always you're the cheapest, right? And everybody says they're the best and they've got the best people, right? Like, but why you, right? And that why doesn't usually come on the face of your proposal. It doesn't come via email. Like, it comes from developing genuine relationships with people that oftentimes have nothing to do with a project, right? It's like, let's just sit and take this networking opportunity and talk to somebody about how I see things and how I see my business and how I see my growth and all of those things, and putting yourself out there. And then people will pick up on that, and they will develop the answer to the why. Why I want to support this person. I want them to grow. I want them to be a part of our community, but people won't know that unless you put yourself out there. So I know it's uncomfortable, and Bryan, I think that's something that's fantastic about what you've done, is that you recognize that it's something that is not natural to you as an introvert, but you've done it anyway, right? And then the other thing I would say specifically to that point as well is, like, this job is very hard, but you get up and you do it anyway, right? Whatever issue it is, it doesn't matter. Just get up and try, because it has been very astounding to me how much, like, that's what really matters, is just that you are willing to show up every single day and try. Because nobody's perfect, nobody knows everything, and if they tell you they know everything, you better run away, because that person is totally full of it, right? And like the person that tells you that they're going to execute well every time and they're never going to have a problem, we all know that's a lie, right? So, just keep trying. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to try and show up every day, and you will succeed. And I know that sounds like a low standard, but it's not. And some days, especially sitting in my chair, man, it is really hard to wake up in the morning and I am going to put my shoes on and go to work today. It's been very long of a week, but I'm still going to go, right? And then you go and you get through it. And every terrible, bad thing that you've been afraid of, you got through, right?
That's
so,
right.
It's you just got to keep trying.
Yeah, and it's commitment, dedication, which goes a long way, right?
Absolutely.
You, Bryan?
Yeah, I think just just to kind of go off what she was saying is get out there. At first, it's gonna seem impossible, right? It seems like nothing that you're gonna do is gonna work, but all you gotta do is keep trying, keep going out there, putting yourself out there, meet people, network, and then be patient. And as you're being patient, make sure you're ready for when those opportunities come. Because when they come, because they will come, you need to be ready to show them what you have and make sure you do the job right, Yeah.
Well, awesome. Great words of advice, and I'm hopeful that, others will benefit from your experience, your journey. and those advice that you just gave. So appreciate both of you all for joining me today, and I thank you.
Thank you, Yami.
Thank you.